Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. I learned recently HTTP 3 is supported in Envoy. Actually, it becomes GA in one of the most recent Envoy. So why HTTP 3? How do you test HTTP 3 with Envoy and maybe use Prometheus or Grafana to observe metrics? In this live stream, I am so excited to have Baptiste to join me to discuss HTTP 3 with Envoy and also show us a live demo of running Envoy with HTTP 3 to observe Envoy metrics. I am so excited to learn from him. So, Baptiste, can you give us a quick introduction?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Lynn. Thank you for having me here today. I'm really glad to be live with you. So, yes, today I will speak about HTTP 3, why there is already a new version just a few years after HTTP 2, and how it works under the hood, why it's really interesting. So, we will explore that.
That's awesome. So before we get to today's episode, let's jump to the news quickly. So the first news I want to share is last Hoot live stream. I work with Christian porting eBPF application to Bumblebee. So all the steps he used in the demo are actually published. So if you're interested in the out of memory OMKIll application and then put that into Bumblebee and then try it on your environment, please check out his blog, which I will put in the show notes, and follow along. It's a really cool way to use Bumblebee and eBPF to learn things. GitHub Con is calling for people. In fact, I've seen a trend of many of the day zero event of KubeCon is started opening up. If you ever have question why you're interested in day zero event are not available, they're coming along. Just be a little bit patient. Solo.io is actually added to the list of Cilium user and vendors because Cilium is part of Glue application network platform. Last on the list, Solo.io joins the GraphQL Foundation. We are so excited to be part of the GraphQL Foundation. That's the news for this week. Sorry, I've been having business trips, not having a lot of time to compare news. But with that, I would like to start asking you, Baptiste, some of the questions about HTTP 3.
Yeah,
So
sure.
can you explain to our audience what is HTTP 3?
Well, so as everybody will understand, this is a new version of the framework protocol today. So before speaking about HTTP 3, what I would like to do is maybe take a few minutes to go to make a brief history of HTTP and how it has evolved over the last 2 decades. So as you can see in this small diagram, HTTP came up like in the 90s with HTTP version actually 0.9, which was really basic. There was only one HTTP method, which was get, and then you put some URI and you get that resource. That was it. There was no HTTP headers. HTTP headers came with HTTP 1 in 1996. And with that, you got some metadata on top of your request or response so that you can better control how the information about the request. And it was still lacking some more attributes, like how you may want to cache the response. So cache control headers came up 1 year later with HTTP 1.1 and a few more options for HTTP. And that worked for quite some time. It's only in 2010 that Google started to think about improving HTTP. And there is a reason why. If you remember, with HTTP 1, you could actually execute only one request per TCP connection. And to as a workaround, many browsers allowed for multiple HTTP requests on a single connection, or concurrent request, up to 6 HTTP requests in parallel. And what Google started to do then was working on this protocol called Speedy, and this allowed for concurrent connections, concurrent HTTP requests on a single TCP connection, and so what is now called multiplexing. Also, it improved the performance because it brought some compression capabilities and prioritization. The other aspect of the other thing that came up with HTTP2 a few years later came from the works of Google and a few other companies on Alpine. And basically, Alpine is a TLS extension that allows for protocol negotiation during the TLS handshake. So basically, if your server supports both HTTP1 and HTTP2, then during the TLS handshake, the client and the server can agree on which protocol version they are going to use for the following request. So this is Alpine. So that was nice, and HTTP2 became stable in 2015. And there was still a problem with that. So this is, and there is still a problem. This is called TCP head-of-line blocking. So let me show you this diagram quickly. So what you see here is our TCP connections with multiple streams over it. So basically, you can think of one stream like the red squares and yellow squares and blue squares as different parts of an HTTP request or different packets of it, okay, or of the payload. And when you have only one single TCP connections and multiple streams on top of it, or multiple requests on top of it, if you lose one packet of the TCP, one chunk of the TCP connection, then the browser or the server will have to send again all the packets. So this is known as the TCP head-of-line blocking. And this is something that Google again wanted to fix with a new approach, a new protocol that is called QUIC, or QUIC. And what's really new with this protocol is that it runs on top of UDP. You know, most of our applications run on top of TCP, and then there is this TLS layer and then the application layer. And what's different with QUIC is that they have basically they're re-implemented of all the nice things of TCP, like connection, the flow control, the congestion control, everything that makes TCP really stable. Then you will find it again in this QUIC protocol on top of UDP, because as you all know, UDP is not a reliable protocol, but with QUIC, things are now different. And
Can
one,
you
yeah,
explain what does quick stands for the audience?
I can't remember. Sorry about that. Maybe there is some good resources that you can find in the links at the bottom of my blog.
Okay, quick
Yeah.
UDP internet connections.
Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah,
Great.
no worries. I guess that one more question before you
Mhm.
move on is I want to ask you, you talk about, HTTP 3, right? So sounds like it's useful when the package gets dropped, so
Yeah,
you don't have to resend the whole thing.
exactly.
So why do I need to care about HTTP 3 from a user perspective? Is it maybe for performance and improve network
Yeah,
performance, especially when network are not reliable?
yeah, exactly. That's a good point. So there are two main reasons. So one is it works better on lower quality networks, especially when in some countries we have good internet networks. It's not the case everywhere. So when there are some loss of packets, then uh, with HTTP2 on top of TCP, you would have to resend all the packets again. It's not the case anymore with QUIC, so it works best in lower quality networks. And also, one other reason is that QUIC comes with TLS, and you cannot have a clear text request with QUIC because
Oh,
TLS is built in QUIC. Okay, so
that's
it's
interesting.
enforced, and it's TLS 1.3.
Mhm.
And one more reason is about latency, because with HTTP to
By the way,
there
can you enlarge your
yeah.
screen so
Oh,
that
yeah,
you
sure.
can go to the presentation mode? It's just nicer for people to see. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. You're welcome. So yeah, the difference between TCP and QUIC basically is the number of round trip you will have between a client and a server. So with QUIC, the TLS handshake is done at the same time that the UDP or the QUIC connection. So there is only one or two round trips, and if you are using some TLS extensions like TLS session resumption, it can go down to only one round trip. So basically, in the same round trip, you will have the quick connection, the TLS handshake, and the HTTP request. So it's really better in terms of performance. I hope.
Interesting. So should I read this as 1, 2, 3, 4 request with quick?
Yes,
I just have 2 requests.
exactly. By default, you will have the quick connection with the TLS handshake right here,
I see.
and also then you will have the HTTP request. But if you also leverage some TLS options that are called TLS session resumption, then it goes down to 0 round trip because everything is done with the first request. Well, that was the benefits of HTTP3. So you have TLS 1.3, no more TCP head offline blocking, reduce connection setup time. And one last benefit is that since in this protocol, all the connections are tagged with an ID, then when you are using your, let's say, your mobile phone, and you switch from your home Wi-Fi to 4G or 5G, and you have
Mhm.
ongoing downloads, then the connection will still work. It's not broken, and the transition between the two networks is really smooth. So this is an additional
Yeah, that's
option.
another big benefit,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so now let's shift to Envoy, right? So
Yeah.
how does HTTP3 impact folks using Envoy, right? In the context of Envoy, are the key building blocks for application networking?
So basically, as you've said, HTTP3 became GA a few months ago with Envoy 1.22, and today it's GA for downstream connections. So basically, when you deploy Envoy at the edge of your infrastructure, like as a gateway, then you can
Mhm.
leverage or enable HTTP3. It's not yet the case for upstream connections, so between the gateway and upstream services. So the main benefit today is an improved latency for between the clients and the proxy. And
Okay, interesting. So do I have to make changes to my application to enable HTTP3? In addition to, I assume I need to enable HTTP3 for my ingress gateway. Is there any changes on the application? Oh, it's transparent to the application.
yes, exactly. So there are a few options now available in the Envoy configuration. So I'm sharing my screen again,
Yeah,
and
let
I'll
me
show
bring
you
it up.
how the yeah
If you can increase the font a little bit, that would be
yeah sure,
great. Thank you so much. Sorry, as you
no
can
worries.
tell, sometimes I'm picking up questions, as I have them. So this is totally without rehearsal.
Is this okay like this?
Yeah, it's much better. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So this is part of the demo, but let me explain what is changing in the Envoy configuration. So if we take a look at this Envoy configuration, that can look scary for people not used to Envoy, and that's basically why you don't do the Envoy configuration yourself, but you use a control plane like Istio
Mm.
or some modern API
Or
gateway
glue
like
edge,
GluEdge.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but if you want to do it by hand, you will have to declare those listeners. So basically, TCP or UDP listeners. And what everyone do now is adding this TCP listener with what we call today the HTTP Connection Manager or HCM. And this is how you configure your HTTP listener today. So in this case, in this demo, I have two listeners. One is the common one over TCP using that HTTP Connection Manager. And the second listener is listening, is a server listening port 10,000 over the UDP protocol. And this is where we will enable Quick as the transport layer with the HTTP3 options. Okay. So let me come back to the first part with the TCP listener. Why? Because when clients connect to your server, you're not sure that they will use HTTP 3, 2 or 3. So basically,
Mhm.
they would start by HTTP 2. And what the server can do is to return an HTTP header called alt svc,
Mhm.
saying to the client that the same service is available at another endpoint. So basically, the same service is available over HTTP3 on the same port. So and the browser can cache this response for like 1 day. And with that, the browser can try a new connection to the server over UDP or over Quick port 10,000. And in this case, you will find again the same options everybody knows. Everybody using Envoy now with the HTTP connection manager. So
Mhm.
and this time, the HTTP connection manager will work on, on the quick transport protocol, and you will find all the same options you are used to have at this HTTP level. So what you see here is just let's say a virtual host working for all domains, and for all the routes, like all paths starting with slash, I want my request to be proxied, to be forwarded to this cluster, to this upstream service. And this upstream service is just a local service running on my machine on port 8080. So this is something I'm about to demo if it's time for demo.
Yeah, so
Uh,
so let me make sure I
yeah.
understand this. So essentially, what you are saying, if I can configure Envoy configuration or rely on a control plane to configure
Hmm.
my Envoy configuration for me, there's no change required for my application. My application
Exactly.
who sits behind the ingress gateway can support both HTTP 2 and also HTTP 3, right? Without any
Yes,
changes
exactly.
to my application. So
But
I can
that's
support them
nice.
concurrently. Yeah. In fact, I think I was just finding a link this morning about experimental mode in
Hmm.
Istio, where you can enable HTTP3 listener on the Istio ingress gateway, which I'll put in the show notes. So that was pretty cool too. Let's see what else I have on. Okay, so um, can you talk about what are the Envoy metrics? Do I get all the Envoy metrics with HTTP 3, similarly as HTTP 2?
Yeah,
And
so
also, if there's any limitation on the Envoy HTTP 3 support?
sure. So the metrics will be quite the same that you already have with HTTP 1 and HTTP 2, because basically a few years ago when Envoy was built, it was designed with HTTP 1 and 2 being supported from the start. And so HTTP3 would just be the same kind of metrics with a different name. So instead of HTTP2, you will find HTTP3. And I can share my screen where I have something running with Grafana, and you will see those metrics. So let me
Okay,
share again.
great. Awesome.
I'm just wondering if I share my full screen. Yeah, maybe that would. I need to share my terminal and a window. So I will start with my terminal where you will see some requests going, and then I will
Okay.
share the dashboard.
Yeah, sounds
So
good. I have the same dilemma last time when I was doing sharing too. Okay, so increase the fonts if you could. That would
sure.
be awesome.
So in my setup, I have, let me find it. So I have Envoy running with the configuration I've just shown. So with this UDP listener with the quick transport. So
Yeah, if
my
you can maybe just increase the font a little bit
yeah.
more.
So
Yeah,
these
that would be
are
great.
just Envoy logs, nothing really interesting.
Okay,
But what you
thank
can
you.
see is that there are two listeners. So one with the TCP and one with quick.
So
Cool.
this is the configuration you showed us earlier, and you're
Yes,
running your
exactly.
Envoy with perfect.
Yeah, this is it. And what I will do now is execute a curl command with this HTTP3 option to enable HTTP3. And I will connect to my local host, my local machine with that domain name over port 10,000 and see what happens.
Okay.
So
Can
what,
you share with us, sorry, it's a little bit
yeah,
faster for me. Can you show us which container are you hitting this request to out of your Docker
yeah.
containers?
So in this case, this is not not a container. This is just the Envoy binary. So I
Okay.
have downloaded Envoy with version 122. Oh, okay, we can see it right here. And
Yeah.
Envoy version 122 supports Quick. So I will run it again. Maybe I have a shortcut for that. Make Envoy, right? So it's running again. And Envoy is running as a binary, but it's proxying a request to some dummy upstream service, which is HTTP bin. And
Gotcha.
since I'm hitting that path slash headers, basically what the backend is doing, it is returning me my request headers in the response payload. So with my curl command, what we can see is first the HTTP3 version for my HTTP request. And you will see standard HTTP headers, and finally the request headers in the response. Let me check. Yeah, also you will see that it is using Quick under the hood and using Alpine to negotiate the HTTP version that is best for the client and the server.
Hmm.
So since I have executed that command and I can run a few
So
more, I should,
question, if you don't mind, I ask. So you mentioned early HTTP3 is always TLS connection. I
yes, right.
assume here maybe it's not
Yeah,
because
yes,
you are
it is.
using dash K.
Yeah, that's why I'm using this reserve option, because I'm connecting over HTTPS to my Envoy instance, and in my Envoy instance, I'm using some TLS certificate with a PEM certificate and a key. And I mean, it's mandatory. You cannot use HTTP3 without HTTPS.
I see. Okay. So you're still you passing in some keys certs when you connect to the example.com.
The only requirement in this case, since my proxy is deployed as a gateway, is
Mm-hmm.
my gateway to have the server certificate. My client doesn't require any client certificate. We are not
Okay.
in a mesh yet.
Okay, got you. So it's a one-way TLS. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So now what I can do is show you the metrics with Prometheus and Grafana. So we'll share my screen again. think it's okay. So, oh, good. And Grafana should be running on port 3000. So the the default password, and so it's admin and Fuba. And what we can do in the meantime, maybe Lynn, if you want, so is to share that link to the
Oh yeah, I did.
in the chat.
Yeah,
We're
thank
trying
you for
to.
that emoji, Victor. Hey, folks, you guys been pretty quiet. So if you have any questions, please type in the chat. We will bring it here so we can answer it for you.
Cool. So this is a standard dashboard for Envoy that I've picked from the Grafana marketplace, where there are tons of dashboards. And this one works well with Envoy as a gateway. Of course, there are many more dashboards available for when you are running an Envoy in a mesh context with Istio. But in this case, that dashboard is enough. And what you can see down here on the bottom right corner is the number of HTTP2 and HTTP3 requests. So I've just customized this panel with the metrics that are relevant in this case. So if we edit that to look at the metrics, you will see which one I have been consuming. So Envoy have been existing for a long time with this kind of metrics. So Envoy HTTP downstream request or downstream connections like CX or request. You decide which metric you want to consume. And so this will count the number of HTTP2 requests over the last minute. And there is the same kind of metrics available for HTTP3. So it's really straightforward, either for the number of requests or the number of existing connections. If I just validate this, yeah, this is the number of connections now. So over the last minute, this is just an average. So yeah, back to the request. All right. So that's pretty much it. If you want to see more metrics about Envoy with HTTP3, you can have a look at the Prometheus metrics. I'm just not sure which port this was running on, so let me just try blindly with 8081. No, I can look for that later. But yeah, basically what you would see is just the same metrics that are already existing with HTTP2. And I think there are a few more details in the links there in the blog, and more information on the metrics you can consume and set up alerting from them if you want to be alerted on anything going wrong at the UDP level. So there is a quick
That's
tip about that
interesting. Yeah,
here.
the job.
Yeah. Well, that's it for the
Okay,
demo.
that's awesome. It's so exciting to see, you can send HTTP3 traffic, you can send HTTP2 traffic by you config Envoy properly, right? So
Yes.
what's the key takeaway you want to share with the audience for the
Yeah.
live stream?
So basically, those ones. So just as a reminder, so HTTP3 runs on top of Quick, which is on top of UDP. So it's not anymore TCP connections. So beware, take care. If you want to enable HTTP3 on your gateway, just think about the firewall that you might have configured upfront. So you want to allow for UDP traffic on top of TCP traffic. Also, TLS 1.3 is mandatory, so you cannot have clear text traffic. And on top of that, if you look at the links at the bottom of the article, there is a really excellent blog series from Robin Marks, who explains in more details how HTTP/3 works. And what you will see there is that there are many more fields of UDP packet that are encrypted compared to the same kind of traffic with HTTP2 and TCP. So basically, the traffic is even more encrypted with HTTP3. So it works really better over lower quality networks in many other countries. What I can add is that HTTP3 is already adopted by all the major internet players. Like, if I remember correctly, Facebook traffic is using HTTP3 already for 80% of the traffic. So it's
Wow.
big. Yeah. And overall on the internet, according to the Cloudflare radar, it's already about 25% of the internet traffic that is using HTTP3. Why? Because all the major actors of the internet are using HTTP3. So Cloudflare, Google, so YouTube, Facebook. So yeah, you can imagine that it's a big part of the traffic. Well, so as we have seen, HTTP3 is available since Envoy 1.22, but only for downstream connections. So today you cannot enable it for upstream connections. It means connections between the Envoy proxy and upstream services. And finally, HTTP3 makes connection switching more smooth. Yeah, so if you can just remember some of them, that is nice. And yeah, I think the figures that I have shared about the global internet traffic are pretty relevant as well.
Yeah, definitely. So 25% of the internet traffic is already running on HTTP3. That's significant. Yeah. I guess mostly for the gateway tier, the downstream connection, the upstream connection, we're not there yet. So that we can potentially enable it for mesh traffic when Envoy supports that.
Yes, correct.
That's really cool. Wow. I want to take a minute to thank you. Baptiste, this has been really informative education for me, and I hope for our audience too. So folks, if you find this is interesting, please let us know, give us a thumbs up, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our future cool live episode where I got educated and hopefully you get educated too. And if you have any topics you would like to see, also please open a GitHub issue in solo.io hoot repository, or just put a comment in the live stream. Thank you so much for joining us today, everyone. I appreciate all the support you guys have. And thank you again, Baptiste, for educating us HTTP3 and Envoy with HTTP3. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.